Okay, we're gonna start off by how I found out I was pregnant with my third baby. And literally, it was towards the end of the year. I think it was around about September or maybe October, and I was just like, you know what? I missed the okay. It was around about September or October. I can't remember, and I'm not gonna go back to my calendar right now. My son was born on the 17th of February, and this baby was due in June. So you guys are gonna do the maths. So it should be around about October. But what happened in terms of my patch, because that's the contraception I was on, it was working just fine until I missed the day to swap it out. So I missed the day to swap it out, and literally a couple of days went by, and then by the time I was like, I should probably go get the patch already, I kind of already figured that, you know what, chances are we are pregnant over here. So yeah, that's what happened. And I think in December I announced that, okay guys, I'm pregnant now. And then let me just switch on my light. I think I want my light on. Okay, so in December I announced that, okay guys, I think I'm pregnant and whatever. And then by then I should have been like about 3 months or 4 months or so. 3 months, yeah, 3 months. And then in June, that's when I gave birth. I'm not really gonna dwell that much on it because, you know, this is my third pregnancy, and you kind of know what your mistakes are. Like, I'm not even gonna be like, oh, I didn't know. I did know I was on contraception, that's why I wasn't trying to get pregnant. I was on contraception. I just missed the day I'm supposed to swap the contraception out. So that never happened, and that's obviously why my contraception failed. The contraception didn't fail. I failed the contraception, and as a result, we ended up falling pregnant again. You know, the crazy thing is that we had a pregnancy scare earlier in the year. I think it was around about April or May. We actually had a pregnancy scare, and that's when I actually got on the pill, because I didn't get on the patch. I didn't get on the patch immediately after giving birth. There was like a time frame where we were just risking it. A few months down the line, I fell pregnant anyway while I was supposedly on contraception. So I feel like the number of kids you're gonna have is part of your destiny. Like, you may try to avoid it or whatever, but like, if this is part of your journey, if this is part of who you're gonna be as a person, that's bound to happen. Like, I spent all of my 20s not getting very intimate with someone to such an extent where we would not use condoms. So because I was avoiding trying to fall pregnant, and I thought, you know, since so much time is wasted away, and I'm already reaching my 30s, I just assumed that, you know what, I'm probably just gonna have one kid and call it a day, you know. But guess what? God was like, no, I actually kept these 3 children here for you. And so yeah, if you're meant to have 7, 3, 2, 1, no kids, it's all part of who you are in life. You can try to delay it, you know, you can try to delay it. That's just how many kids you're gonna have. That is just how many kids you are going to have, regardless. If you decide to have them from high school, chances are they were going to be 3. Maybe I'm not even finished. Maybe they're supposed to be 4 or 5. I don't know. But honestly, at this point, we done. we don't want to have any more, please. Literally, we don't want to have any more kids. We were done with the 2, but obviously Lou came along and we weren't even mad. We were like, okay. Well, I wasn't. My husband was like, why do we have to have another kid? I was like, well, he's here now. So he was like, okay, I guess we're gonna have 3 kids. So yeah, that's how we found out I was pregnant. It wasn't really a discovery or like a shocker. It was like, you know what, we messed up. It was bound to happen, and this is the results. So it happened, and I guess we have a baby on the way. So as usual, I went to my gynae. Guys, I've been with the same gynae for all 3 of my pregnancies. I just like her. I like my gynae. I've had no problems with my gynae. We always give birth very, very nicely. Even with this one, I know in my birth vlogs, I think I was emotional, while I was editing that. I was still in my recovery phase. So, I keep saying, even in the vlog, I kept saying the baby was unexpected. Child, the baby was 39 weeks and a couple of days. So you were expecting the baby on the 14th of June. The baby arriving on the 12th of June is not unexpected. That baby was due, man. You were waiting for that baby. So yeah, I guess it's unexpected in the sense that I did not personally expect the baby to arrive on that particular day. I thought, because with all my other kids, they wait for their EDD, and then with Good it was 2 days after his EDD, and then with Yala it was a day, the next day after EDD. So in my mind, I was like, oh, today we're going to do some nesting on the 12th, and it was going to be a summery day, so we're going to have some sun, and we were going to wash out everything and tidy up stuff and put them in place and whatever. We did already buy some baby clothes, but I didn't want to put that on the previous vlogs because I'm cautious about putting things out, especially when it comes to babies. People are watching, and you really don't want to attract any type of negativity that's gonna end up jinxing you guys. We obviously didn't get to do a nesting video. We just jumped straight into the birth video because obviously the day we were supposed to be, we had planned to do all the things for the nesting and to do the video for that. That was the day the baby actually arrived. And this time around, the baby started, the contractions started at about 3:30 in the morning, and they were so sharp that I was just like, what's going on? They were so sharp, and I just knew that, this baby's coming this very morning. This baby's not going to wait until tomorrow or whatever. This baby's coming this very morning. So obviously what happened was I woke up. My husband comes back early hours of the morning anyway. So an hour prior to that, I'd just woken up to open the door for my husband, and we'd gotten into bed and whatever. I was so tired. We didn't even get to speak much. We went straight to bed. And then literally an hour or so later, clearly when I look back at the time, I had gone to the bathroom, and when I went, I saw blood. So now I'm like, oh gosh, it's happening. But I go back to bed and I try to close my eyes, and I realize, oh no, I'm actually experiencing real labor contractions like right now. And the pain was so sharp. It wasn't the faint, distant type of contractions. They were very sharp. They were like, you need to go and give birth now. So obviously I was like, there's no way they could come on that strongly so quickly. Let's try and delay the process. So I tell my husband, and my husband's like, oh, okay, let's just try go back to sleep and you'll let me know if there's any changes to how you feel. And we once again tried to go back to sleep, but I was like, no. They're at least 15 or 10 minutes apart at this point, and they are so sharp. It's like, it's crazy. I need pain medication for this. So we round up the kids, get them dressed, start packing their bags. We call my mom and we ask my mom if we can come and drop them off. She's like, yeah, sure, come through. And then we did just that. Went to my mom's place at about 5:30, because I like to be like all showered up before I go out there. Showered up and everyone's nicely packed. And then we get to the hospital at about 2:06. And then we start filling in the forms, the normal questions, the normal checking in on you. So they're going to check how far you dilated and so forth. So when they did their first check, they were like, oh, you 3 centimeters dilated. And I was like, oh, brother, I'm clearly going to be here for quite a while, So I then decide, okay, cool, it's okay. I guess we're going to chill. I also texted my gynae at this point, just briefing her about what's happening and where I'm at, and so the nurses were like, also like, oh, we contacted your gynae. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. Then my husband and I just chilled. And then my husband, see, with my first daughter, when I went to go and deliver, there was COVID, and so he was so supportive in everything. He was so supportive, and he was like, I'm gonna be at the hospital and da 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 da. I'm gonna be there for you and whatever. So we went to the hospital, and then it turns out he couldn't go in, but he was outside just like calling me and keeping me like cheery and keeping me like calm through the phone. We were speaking through the phone most of the time, calling each other, video calling each other. So he was so supportive during my first pregnancy and everything. I assumed that he would want to be in the delivery room, right? And we spoke about him being in the delivery room and how he actually said, well, I guess I'm excited and whatever, And then that doesn't happen because of COVID. And then I thought that he was disappointed that didn't happen. So with the second baby, with the COVID regulations being being less strict, I thought that he would want to be in the delivery room. But once again, we didn't, because we hadn't made any arrangements for the kids. We assumed that we could just go in with the kids into the hospital or whatever. Maybe a nurse watches over them while we in the theater room or whatever. But they were like, no, kids aren't allowed and whatever. So I was like, oh, okay, I guess my husband will have to go home and stay with the kids while I give birth to stay with Yala while I give birth to Gude. So once again, it never occurred to me that this guy had no intentions to be in the delivery room in the first place. So now we in the delivery room, right? We're in the theater. They have me set up there because they were like, okay, well, your contractions, as they're doing the second one and so forth, checking in on me. At some point they were like, I'm at 6 or something, and 6 centimeters dilated. And he was like, I have to tell you something. And I'm like, what? And he's like, I don't think I can be here for this. I'm like, you don't think you're going to be here for what? He's like, I don't think I can be here for the birth. Like, I'm really sorry, T. I'm going to be right outside. Don't worry. I'm going to be right outside waiting for you. But I don't want to watch it. I'm really sorry. I don't want to watch it. So I was like, you don't have to be so apologetic. Quite frankly, I thought that you really wanted to experience this. But personally, I would not want you in there, because I don't think I'd be able to handle someone freaking out or being grossed out or just being scared. Because that's another thing about my husband. Like, when I tell him something, he gets more angry. Like, when I tell him something that's happening to me that's like bad, or like someone was being weird to me, he gets more angry than me. He gets more angry at that person than I am angry. So, he gets really worked up, and that's only because, like, he feels helpless if he can't do anything about it. You get what I mean? So, like, yeah, I was like, how is he gonna handle me being in there and the nurses like trying to make me push and I'm not pushing, and like, what if he ends up getting frustrated in the process? So I was always like a bit worried, like, do I really want him there? And I was like, I really don't want him there, but like, I didn't want to deny him the experience as like the father of the child or of the children. I was like, if you want to see the birth, you're more than welcome, All along, this guy never wanted to see no birth in the first place. And now that he was finally going to get to see it, he chickened out himself. He was like, look, I'm sorry, I actually don't want to see this. I don't want to be here for this. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, you don't have to be. I don't want to put you under any pressure. And he's like, look, there's a lot of things that need to get done at home. Like, I need to get out the cot from the wardrobe, assemble it. I need to, wash out the mattress and the bedding for the baby. There's just a lot, and we need to tidy up. We left the house like a random, because obviously, we didn't get to do like the normal tidying up for the day. So let me tidy up so that when you and the baby come home, you guys can be like relaxed in a nice tidied environment. So I was like, okay, well, you do that, and that's what he did. So he left, and then he was like, before he left, he was like, but do call me when you have to go into, I want to be here so that as soon as it's done, I can come in and like just be here with you guys. But obviously, when that was all happening, I was so tuned into being a mom. Immediately after I gave birth, I wasn't thinking about him. I was thinking about the baby. So I'm holding the baby, taking pictures of the baby, and then I was like, oh yeah, I need to tell him that it's done. So I sent him a text. I'm like, it's done. So he calls me, he's like, you done? I'm like, yes. He's like, yo, that was quick. I thought this is like afternoon vibes. I'm like, no, I'm done now. I told you it was going to be in the morning. He's like, yeah, you did. So that's exactly what happened. So he came back to the hospital, get to see his baby and everything. Now, guys, this time around, yeah, I gave birth. Everything went well. It was straightforward birth. But when I was like round about 6 to 8 centimeters dilated, I realized that the pain meds that they gave me, they just gave me a normal pain injection. It wasn't an epidural. It didn't go into my spine, in my back or whatever. It went into my buttocks, just one injection, and it was for the pain. I feel like they gave me like a high dose, and bless their souls, but I think they were trying to make it very comfortable for me. So they were trying to make me comfortable, because I went and I said, I want a painkiller, I want a pain injection, because I don't think I can just raw dog this. Like, there's no way I can just give birth, the pain is intense. So they're like, no, it's understandable, like, we're gonna give you pain meds. So they did. 8 centimeters, like, I could not feel any of the contractions. They had completely subsided. I was just like, what's going on? And the reason why, some people were asking me on my WhatsApp, like, what did you mean by when you couldn't feel your contractions? You were like, you were stressed by that. This should be a good thing. Wouldn't it be a good thing if you're not feeling the pain? I was like, well, that's because I'm stressed about it because the method in which I give birth, you know, that works for me and that worked for me with both my kids was that I do the whole controlled labor method. So every single time when it's time to push, you know, when I'm at 10 centimeters, when it's time to push, I would use the contractions to cue me for when to push. So now I'm not feeling any contractions. So how do I know when to push? I will only rely on what the nurses are telling me based on what they're hearing from the monitor. You know, that's what we had to do. And so I literally just went in and pushed on instinct. I was listening to the instruction, but I was also going with my body. What I was feeling is natural. What I was feeling is right. And I would like push, you know. And then, yeah, you know, the baby was much heavier. The baby was at 4.4 kg this time around. So he was a struggle. He was a struggle to get out. And also, I believe that because of the medication, I feel that the baby also wasn't moving, because chances are he probably got kind of sedated too. So he was probably in there taking a nap when he's supposed to be getting out. So, yeah, it was a bit of a tough one this time around. And subsequently, I ended up tearing. Now, I had no idea I tore. First of all, I did not feel the tear. I did not, you know, but I just heard my gynae say, oh, turns out that you tore. And then I was like, what? She's like, yeah. I don't think that they had seen it initially. It was when they were tidying it up that they realized, oh, there's a little tear there. So like, yeah, I ended up getting 2nd-degree tears. So if you know about anything about tearing, you know that there are 4 types of tears, right? But the 3rd type of tear is divided into 3. So there's technically speaking, there are 6 type of tears. So there's 1st-degree tear, then there's a 2nd-degree tear, then there's a 3A, a 3B, a 3C, and then you get a 4th-degree tear. So technically speaking, there are 6 type of tears, but they are subdivided into 4 type of tears. Okay. So from the 6 type of tears, I got 2nd-degree tear, right? You guys are following me. So I got 2nd-degree tear, and that is basically the skin and some of the muscle, okay? Because I gave birth and I didn't have any stitches with my first 2 pregnancies, I just assumed that this one would also be the same. And I felt angry that it wasn't. Like, I was like, why did I tear? I never tore before. Like, it doesn't even make sense. So, like, I asked the nurse, like, did I tear naturally or did you guys cut me? So she's like, no, shame. When the baby was about to come out, there was a bit of a stuck of his shoulder as he was coming out. So we had to make a little twist of his shoulder to have him come out there. So that's probably what created the pressure that led to the tear. But I mean, you can't possibly be upset about a 2nd-degree tear. It's like, it's literally just the skin, like, really. But I was like, no, I don't care. I never tore before. She's like, all pregnancies are different, ma'am. Some people tear the one time, some people don't the next time, and then the 3rd time they get a C-section, they can't even push the baby out. So it's all different for each birth. It's all very different. So I was like, you know what? I guess you're right. I'm just so grateful that the baby is healthy and I'm healthy. And she's like, and that's the most important thing. You actually did well. Don't be so hard on yourself. You actually did well. So I was like, okay, cool. So anyway, we move out to the maternity ward. We're in the delivery rooms, right? So now we move out to the maternity wards, and they bring me my breakfast, and they go and clean up the baby and feed the baby and whatever. And then my husband arrives, and I tell my husband, like, I tore. And my husband's like, okay, anyway, how big's the baby? I'm like, sir, can you care about me and my well-being first, as your wife? But I think that's another thing that I appreciate about the people around me. Like, they know how emotional I get about things. So yeah, like my husband was like, oh, dude, like everyone tears, like you don't even seem like you're in pain or whatever. So like, I finally get over it. I was like, you know what, I'm actually over it. It's really not even as bad as I thought. Now mind you, obviously medicated. They gave me a drip when they were doing the stitches, and I took like painkillers, So the intensity of the pain, I couldn't feel it yet. Okay, cool. So the next day, okay, well, it's the morning of the same day, right? Because I gave birth at like past 9 a.m. And they tell me, like, you have to stay. We're going to monitor the baby's sugar levels because he's over 4.4 kg. It's like procedure to have the baby stay in so that they can monitor his sugar levels. And also because I got stitches and they gave me a drip, they want to see whether my blood levels are fine. So they I think it's called the hemoglobin test the next morning. So yeah, we stayed. My husband went home. The next morning, the baby was also cleared by the pediatrician later on that evening. She came in while my husband and I were there before he went home, and she was like, oh, the baby's doing well. You guys can leave in the morning. So we were like, oh, okay, cool, fine. Later on that same night, she did her check-in, and she told me that, yeah, you guys can leave tomorrow. I don't see anything regarding the baby. So the next morning, the nurse came in, did my blood work for the hemoglobin test, and apparently that also came out fine. So my gynae discharged me in the morning. She was like, you guys can maybe leave at about 12, I guess, so that the hospital can do all their necessary steps and whatever, and then you guys can be discharged at 12. I can let you guys go at 12. Okay, cool. So now in my mind, I'm like, we're leaving here at 12. Prior to that, just before that, round about before my husband comes in, he came in at about 11 or so. Does the pediatrician not come back and say that she suspects that the child has jaundice? Now, I've been with a baby, and I've seen other babies that have jaundice, like in pictures and whatever. So I knew for a fact that there's no way my baby has jaundice because he doesn't have the symptoms. His skin is normal, his skin is flush, like, it's the complexion of a newborn fresh baby. He's brown in complexion, but it has like a reddish tint to it because he's a new fresh baby. So I knew for a fact there's just no way. And his eyes, he didn't open his eyes that much, but the times where he did roll his eyes as I was feeding him, I did not spot any yellowness, So the pediatrician is like, no, everyone would not have noticed this, but because of your guys's the fact that you and your child don't have the same blood group, I did another test, and from this they did a test like with a little machine. From the machine, we can see that the baby does have jaundice, and I believe that this is pathological jaundice. Now, trust me, you don't want to ignore this type of jaundice because it can be a bit more extreme, and the consequences could be a bit more serious. the child could have brain damage, Yo, did I not get scared? So obviously now I'm scared and concerned, and my husband arrives. My husband's like, we're thinking that we're gonna go home. We already packed and everything. I was just waiting for my baby. And my husband is like, what's going on? And I'm like, they're saying that they have to send the baby to the NICU because he has jaundice. So my husband like, the baby don't have jaundice. The baby's skin is fine. But you know what? Ultimately we were like, okay, run the tests. We will wait for the tests to come back, and then we'll decide what we're going to do in regards to the child. So in the interim, they take the child to the NICU. They have him under the phototherapy lights, right? I think that's what you call them. Phototherapy lights. The next thing you know, they're making me sign an admission to the NICU officially. I was like, no, I'm not signing him in. I just let them put him under the NICU, but his pediatrician did say that he will get released if it turns out that he doesn't need the treatment. So then we waited for the results to come back, and the pediatrician eventually ended up calling us saying that the child's bilirubin levels are below treatment level. So she is going to discharge us, but she advises that I keep coming back in to take the bilirubin test so that they can ensure that the baby's actually stabilized and that his body is getting rid of it himself. So a couple of days after giving birth, I was in touch with the pediatrician, and I also ended up going to the hospital on 2 or 3 occasions, but ultimately I got the clear, and I got the lab results that says that he's cleared now. At some point, the last results that we took, it was at 107, and he was like already a lot of days in. So you know what, they were like, yeah, no, he's fine. So yeah, that's the final test. You don't need to come in anymore. So yeah, literally he's been fine ever since, and yeah, there's nothing much I can say on that. People that have experienced jaundice will tell you that it goes away on its own. Even some of the nurses at the hospital, when they were like, oh, yeah, and I was like, yeah, we're doing the bilirubin test, and they were like, oh, okay. And then the one nurse was like, oh, my child actually also had jaundice, but I never came in for the test. I just put him close to the sun. I put his bed or his baby cushion in the lounge where there's direct sun flowing into the room, and then I'd put him under there just so that he can have some sun. He literally cleared out within a couple of days, and I'm like, yeah. So same thing happened with Lou. So okay, yeah. Now on to my actual recovery. I'm not doing any notes, and I'm concerned that I might leave out some things. Hopefully I don't. And if I do, I'll just try to insert it with like little voiceovers. So okay, so now on to the actual recovery. Like when I got home, my husband and I came home to our place and just chilled. The kids are obviously at my mom's place, right? We spent some time, just the 3 of us with the baby. We decided to start cooking. Well, he decided to start cooking and whatever. And then later on, we took the baby and we went to go to my mom's house to pick up the kids, but most importantly so that my mom can get to see the baby. So I think in the last video I did, I was like, my mom came to drop off clothes, and this is the first time she's seeing the babies. I'm now realizing that she wasn't seeing the babies for the first time. We actually went to pick up the baby, the kids with the baby. So she had seen the baby before, but obviously it was for a very short time because I was there and I had to rest. But it was her first time seeing the baby after the whole jaundice episode, which she also didn't take very seriously. She was like, oh, it's jaundice, it's so common, so yeah, just keep the baby well fed, and the baby will eventually work the jaundice out of his system. So yeah, I also told her, oh, I tore, and she was like everyone else. Like everyone else. And you know what, I just realized, you know what, I need to stop talking about it because clearly no one cares. Anyway, we get home that day, and I take some Mybelan, and we end up sleeping. The next day now, guys. The next day, all the medicine is out of my body. All of it is out of my body. It was at this point I realized how sore my bums are. And now I'm crying, and I'm crying because I'm in so much pain, you know? I'm like, what is going on? And me being me, I've did this with my other pregnancies too, you know? Even if you give birth and you don't have any stitches, you are still in pain. Like, the pain will always be there. You literally pushed out a human out of your bums. So you are definitely going to feel pain. That area was stretched and a baby came out. So even if you don't tear, you will still feel pain. But the pain I felt this time was a bit more intense than the other times. And with the other times, I did check what was going on, you know, like with a mirror. And I was like, oh, okay, I get what part of me is sore. I get it, you know. It's just the whole area, and it's tender because it gave birth, obviously. This time around, I took a look. I cried immediately because I thought I was watched. Yeah, I cried immediately. If you have stitches, don't look. If you don't have stitches, I guess you don't see that much of a difference. You just see the fact that, okay, well, I guess it's kind of purplish blue because it gave birth. But yay, if you had stitches, don't look. It's gonna be bad. So like, yeah, and on top of that, this time around, I had this is gonna be TMI, but I had hemorrhoids. So it was just So now what I saw is playing with my mind, and it's making me upset. Yo, guys, I was really upset. I was like, I felt like, did I really tear, or did they tear me? Am I gonna get better? You know, I felt angry. I felt like someone had to take accountability for what happened to me. And it's not my baby's fault. No, I love my baby. I love my baby. It could never be my baby's fault. At some point, I blamed my husband. I asked my husband, do you think the nurses this time didn't like me? Like, why would I tear? Like, it just doesn't make sense. Do you think my gynae is angry with me? And my husband was like, dude, honestly, I don't think anyone had anything to do with you tearing. except for the fact that the baby was big and you were just bound to take because it was a big baby. So okay, yeah, I took my Mybulin, but also I wasn't taking my Mybulin as often as I should. I was taking my Mybulin sparingly because I want to feel the pain, and I want to know how my healing is progressing, because my concern with taking the painkillers too much was that I'm gonna take the painkillers too much and it's gonna numb how I'm really feeling and how I'm really progressing, that I won't notice when I'm being stagnant or when there's no change, because I'm just on the painkillers. So I would literally only take the painkillers when I'm like, I'll take the painkillers. But most of the time, I was staying in bed and I was sleeping on my side so I don't put pressure on my bottom. I was doing the salt baths, which leads me to the second part of this conversation. I was only using salt and water. I got a peri bottle from the hospital, and then guess what? Tanya takes the bottle and throws hot kettle water into it to dissolve the salt, obviously, but then the kettle water ends up shrinking my bottle. It shrunk, Sana. It shrunk in front of my eyes, and there was no longer a peri bottle. So I was like, there's no way I'm gonna go to the shop for this. There's got to be another way, and I'm not gonna go back to the hospital and ask them, can I have a peri bottle? So for me, what was working in the shower was to use like a cup. So I sacrificed one of my cups, and I would dissolve using the hot water from the shower to dissolve the salt and literally splash it directly in the area. That is all. That is all I used. I know some people prefer sitting down like in a basin and then throwing the hot water in there and then throwing the salt and then soaking your bums in there. Whichever way works for you. I know the American girlies, because I watched a lot of the vlogs for how to heal your perineum. They had extensive, but the American girlies are product girls. Those people love products. Yo. There's the combo, which basically everyone is swearing by, which is it's the peri bottle, the dermoplast, the witch hazel, the ice pads, and what else? The peri bottle, the dermoplast, the witch hazel, the ice packs, the Tux. They have a product called Tux. Apparently you can get it in South Africa too. They have a product called Tux, and that's basically for the hemorrhoids. But I didn't use any of that because I'm a sensitive hun, and I'm very mindful of like too much products down there. I'm a no-no. So I'm a very minimalist person. My mom also was like, oh, it's just water, and you make sure the water's hot. You use hot water and salt, but obviously you can use cold water too. Some people actually say the cold water is more effective than the hot water. So for me, because I'm in the shower, I could literally alternate immediately. So I would dissolve the salt in hot water, throw it directly, and then pour another salt portion, and then run it under cold water and dissolve it and splash that up my bum, and then there'd obviously be salt granules left. And if you throw some up there and some of this like left there, just leave it there, because it's definitely gonna create some sort of healing effect, So okay, so yeah, that's what I did. And then I'd get out of the bath, and then I'd use a cloth. So I'd use like a washcloth. I'd use one. You can obviously use the one that you usually use for your bums, or you can get a different separate one for your maternity recovery. And so what you basically do is you have it under warm water, you wring it dry as best possible you can, and then you pat the area dry because it needs to be dry. Also, every time I would have a bowel movement, especially in the first 2 weeks, I would then have a shower. Even if it's a quick little shower, get in there and do the salt method thing every single time. I would go in there every single time. But of course, you don't have to do this. Some people just do it after their bath in the morning and their bath in the evening, and then that's as many as you need. But because I would feel so ill, and with my case, it wasn't just the stitching, it was also the hemorrhoids. So I would just be like, I need to make sure this thing heals, and it heals properly, and it heals quickly, fast. So and literally by the second week, I was no longer feeling any pain. And yeah, I did have I still had some bleeding right up until week 4. But by week 4, it wasn't real bleeding. It was like urine or something. It was like urine. And when I looked it up, I think it's called lochia. So this is just the last bits. After all the blood is gone. This is just your uterus draining out the very last bits of fluids that are left in there, so that it can all be cleared out for good. Anyway, back to recovery. During this time, guys, it's also very important that you not only take care of what's happening down there, but you take care of what's happening inside. So you need to drink a lot of your water, still drink your water, and you need to be eating well, okay? And preferably eat a lot of fruit and vegetables, because what you want to do is you want to be able to go to the bathroom as smoothly as possible. Everyone is obviously scared to go to the bathroom the very first time, after giving birth. I was scared even when I didn't have stitches, because you just feel so tender down there that you what if something bad happens, or what if you feel pain? So yeah, luckily enough, nothing happened. I went to the bathroom. I was still obviously constipated because the supplements that we take, this is obvious, there's iron in the supplements that we take. So those supplements make you constipated. So I was still very much constipated. So, but when I went, because I've been eating a lot of rich in fiber foods and I was taking a lot of water, I didn't have to strain that much. So you just want to make sure that you're eating, you're drinking water, and you're eating healthily, and you should be fine. And if you do end up hurting yourself, I would only assume that you'll have to go back to the hospital, I guess, I don't know, in the event of someone tearing to third and fourth degree level, I wouldn't know. But if you have a 2nd degree tear, trust me, you'll be able to go to the bathroom. Even if you are slightly constipated, you would be able to go to the bathroom without any trouble to the stitching. Your stitches will be fine. Your stitches will remain intact. If you are very, very scared, or if your constipation is extreme, you could always just ask your doctor to prescribe what do you call this, stool softener, like a laxative or whatever. And then a laxative that's like safe for breastfeeding. So yeah. Did I have baby blues? I didn't have baby blues, except for me feeling angry and feeling like something was done to me deliberately. And it turned out that, like, when I was online and going through people's birth stories and whatever, a lot of people, unfortunately, this is the cards God dealt to you. But because you feel that you tried everything you could to make this smooth as possible, you planned everything to the T, you obviously don't want to take any accountability for it just being no one's fault. You obviously feel like you're going to have to blame someone, and that's mostly what I noticed in most people when I go online and I see people's birth stories, and some people are like, bad birth story or birth trauma or worst pregnant birth vlog, whatever, all these vlogs with like bad stories. Everyone felt like the medical staff had something to do with it. And that's crazy, because in my very minor, very, very minor, very, very common situation, I also felt that way. I was like, did they do this to me deliberately? Because I gave birth just fine the first 2 times. Like, why wouldn't I give birth just fine the 3rd time? But it's not, that thing is unpredictable. Like, you cannot be upset because you just got a 2nd-degree tear. Some people go in there planning that they're going to give birth naturally, and then they end up tearing, and not just tearing, but end up going for an emergency C-section. So some people end up getting cuts, like they get an episiotomy. Is that what it's called? Episiotomy. You know what I mean, where they cut you so that your vagina can open up so that they can give natural birth to you, so that you can give natural birth through your vagina. But like, because you didn't plan for that to happen, you're gonna feel like, did that have to happen, or did they just do that to me? And that's natural, because if someone slaps you in the face, your first thing would be to retaliate. That's what pain makes you do. Your natural instinct is to protect yourself and to be defensive, right? So it only makes sense that you feel like they did you dirty. It's absolutely normal, but it's also not okay, so find comfort in knowing that you should be more grateful that your baby's alive and that you're healthy, and that a lot of these things that happen in the delivery room has happened to someone else too. And so, without making it seem like I find comfort in other people's sad stories, no, I find comfort in knowing that how I feel is normal. And I'm grateful that someone shared their story so that I can also relate to it, so that I can be like, oh, so how I'm feeling is normal, But honestly, now that you're calm, because I think most of how I was reacting was based on what I saw the very next day after giving birth when I got home, and the pain that I was in at the time. So my emotions towards my recovery was based on pain, Retrospectively, I realized that I actually had a smooth delivery. I actually did have a smooth delivery. Everything actually did go well. The baby came out healthy and fine. I was healthy and fine. I gave natural birth within 25 minutes. I'll push for 25 minutes. It wasn't even that long. I only got a 2nd degree tear, very common. The baby was a big baby, so I was bound to tear. At that size, and with my body frame especially, I was bound to feel some sort of, I was bound to get some sort of tearing. That would be normal. I have been lucky the first 2 times. But I'm still extremely lucky because this is not the worst case scenario, because people die in labor. People die, or people lose their babies in labor. So you should be very grateful that none of that happened. Every single time after I've pushed that baby out and the baby comes out, I'm always thanking everyone. I'm always thanking everyone because really, the way I get so anxious when I go into delivery, you have no idea just how grateful I am just having made it out, because honestly, at some point you literally feel like you could die. That's how extreme the pain is. But yeah, anyway, now that I'm more calm, and the birth was not unexpected. The birth was actually, it was due. It was 2 days before my EDD. That's when I should have given birth. It was fast because, well, that's what happens when you've given birth before. Like my first baby, I lost the mucus plug on the 18th. And then, on the 17th of December. And then I only gave birth the next day at 8 p.m. And during this time, I felt contractions, but the contractions were mild at first, and then they got stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, So, that was, I would say that was over 24 hours. Yeah, it was just over 24 hours of labor, And then with the boys, it was literally within 5 to 6 hours from when I first feel the contractions to when I push the baby out. It would all happen within 6 hours. So it is fast, but it's not, I wouldn't go as far as calling it is it expeditious birth, like when it's extremely fast, because apparently when it's extremely fast, it's 3 hours or less than 3 hours. That's when it's like extremely fast. So like, yeah, it wasn't that either. So yeah, that's me reacting to my birth vlog. So yeah, what else? I hope there's nothing that I'm leaving behind. Oh, do I see myself having another kid again anytime soon? No, personally no. But my gynae was like, oh, you have another one coming. I was like, stop. I was like, no, this is the last time I'm seeing you. She's like, no, maybe not now, maybe in a couple of years time, but you definitely have one more left in you. I'm like, yo, there's no way. So no, I don't know. I don't know what she's talking about, what she saw, but I definitely do not see myself going through the whole pregnancy thing again. I think I've had enough. I think I've experienced it thoroughly. Like, I feel like in a couple of years' time, there's nothing anyone would say that would make me feel like, oh, I want to go through that again. No, I went through it 3 times. I think I'm good. So yeah, I think that is it from my side. It is getting late. So yeah, I'll speak to you again in my other vlogs. Mwah.